So your ex has invited you to your child's birthday party and they want you to come. So this is a situation that comes up relatively often. I get comments about this where technically it happens one of two different ways. Either you're completely persona non grata and they don't want you anywhere around, or they invite you to an event that is probably going to be just a little bit hostile for you. More than likely, they expect that you're not going to go, and it's kind of a setup. It's like, hey, why don't we're going to have a birthday party for little Johnny. Why don't you show up? It'll be all of my friends, all of my family, everyone who basically hates you. You should be there. Now, there's one of two ways that I approach this. And the first situation, or the first thing I recommend someone to look at, is can you actually handle being in that environment? Oftentimes, especially early on in this, every time that you're around your ex, it's incredibly stressful to have to be in that environment. And typically, whenever you are around them in that type of environment, it causes you problems that linger for a while. So you have to ask yourself, one, can you handle going to the event? And two, can you keep it together and not make a scene? And three, what is going to be the long-term impact whenever you're done? What I'm saying is are you going to basically be then ruminating about everything? And is it really going to take every little bit of progress that you've probably made or hopefully have made and completely erase it and cause you to effectively crash and burn? So the first thing is, if any of those situations are true, you need to not go. Now, you need to understand that whenever you do this, more than likely it's a setup, right? They're offering you to go, expecting you to say no so that they can turn around and play that you are the one who won't let things go, you have issues and all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing to remember. It doesn't matter whatever you do, it's going to be the wrong decision. So don't look at what I just said and go, oh crap, I need to do that because if I show up, then they can't say it. Well, yeah, they can't say that, but then they'll say other things. If you show up and you're perfectly happy, then there'll be some issue with that. So keep in mind that no matter what you do, you are not going to be able to make your ex happy, especially if they're toxic, leaning on the narcissistic scale. You're not going to be able to do anything to make them happy or to appease them. Now, I can say, or I can use an example. I've never had this. I was never invited to any special events. Now, there were times where I had combined events for school functions where there were a handful of times where I decided not to go because I knew that I was so stressed and irritated about what was going on that I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to hold it together and not say something that I would regret. So you need to make sure that if you are going to go to any type of event like this, that you can handle it in an appropriate way. Okay, so the second part of this is, let's say that you've mastered the hybrid no contact, you've mastered the gray rock, and they don't get to you, and you can do it. Like I've talked about in other videos, like the last one where I had the tennis event for my middle daughter, where I ended up having to hang out with the ex for a couple of hours, and I was able to fake it, right? It was not exactly something that I wanted to do, but I was able to show up and at least put on a smile and pretend like everything was fine. Now, if you can do that going to these type of events, it's better because then it's better for your child. Your child will feel more normal about what's going on. It also does have the added benefit that any of the smear campaign that the ex is trying to say against you, it makes it harder for it to be believed, because there you are being completely civil, acting, because that's what it is, you're acting like nothing's wrong, and that you're able to interact with your ex in that environment. See, it's catch-22, right? If you show up or you don't show up, then they can use it against you. And depending on what happens, more than likely, if you do show up, they're still going to use it against you. It just doesn't matter. There's no appeasing these people and making them change. It's just not going to happen. So you really have to decide what exactly you're capable of doing and whether you can actually interact in that environment. Like I said, if you can pull it off, that's great. And there's a lot of benefits to doing it. You just have to make that decision where you're at in this process. Now, what I will say is, if you're early into it, if you're like within the first year or maybe two of this stuff going on, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you really think you can do it. And I say that is because oftentimes whenever we've had some separation from the ex and we think like we're doing okay, It's not until we're in their presence that we're actually having to engage with them and basically sit across from them and have them pretend like everything's fine. One of the things that used to frustrate me is I knew what was being said about me in the court system, and then when I was around her in public, it was like nothing was wrong. And in my mind, it was really hard to deal with that, because I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, you're saying I'm a horrible monster who is abused you, abusing the kids. I mean, I'm a danger to everybody. And then when we're in public, you're acting like everything's fine. At that time, early on in that, I didn't understand what I was dealing with, so it really messed with my head. I mean, it was just one of those bizarre things. A story I often mention or remind people of is early on, I mean, like within the first few months of the court stuff just starting, going to a school function where all the parents were invited. I'm sitting there basically around my ex, and she's sitting there going, hey, there's a seat right here. Why don't you sit here? Acting like everything was fine, while I knew that, and I was reading documents that were saying completely the opposite, that she was afraid of me, that she didn't want to be around me, that I was big and scary and all those different things. And then here I am, and she's acting fine. The one thing I just want to say on that is, all of this crap is they're playing their own illusion. So in retrospect now, I get it. I understand what was going on, and I understand that it was just an means to an end for her to try to get what she wanted. And it didn't. It doesn't. It's not that it doesn't mean anything, because it is incredibly stressful to go through this. But in retrospect, it was all BS. And had I been able to recognize that and just be like, okay, you're being an idiot and this is stupid, it would have been easier for me to deal with it. But I was approaching it wrong early on, and I wasn't ready to deal with a lot of this stuff emotionally. I remember in that one situation I was talking to you about with the school function, with the sit right here, I literally took my phone and recorded and was recording I don't know if you can see this, recording my daughter. I'll do it this way. Recording my daughter and kind of like trying to get everyone in there so I'd have a video record of the fact that here we are completely acting fine. I was the one that was more freaked out, because I was at this point, at this stage of the game, I was completely scared of what she would do. I was waiting for her to punch herself in the face and basically say, I did it, that type of thing. I was really freaked out by what was going on. So at the end of the day, you really have to make that decision on what you think you can deal with and how you think this is going to play out. If you think that it's a risk that you will do something wrong, or make a bad move, or do something that could be used against you later on, don't show up. And you can look at that and go, okay, well, if I don't show up, they're going to guilt me and shame me, saying that you're a piece of crap because you won't show up and put your child ahead. Just answer it this way and say, hey, look, you know what? I don't want to add any extra stress. It's not a problem. You have your party, you have your event, and I'll have mine, and that way it keeps things more stable, and it doesn't interfere with what you're doing, and it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing, and it's not a big deal. See, there's a way to spin that to where the guilt and the shame doesn't really happen. It doesn't matter. They're still gonna try to make you feel like garbage, and they're still gonna basically try to put you down because you're not doing what they wanna do, even if they may not even really want you to do it. But that's the thing to remember on this. Personally, for me, I'm in the situation where unless it's something that I absolutely have to engage with her on it, I'm not going to do it. My daughter specifically asked me to go to that last event earlier this year for her tennis team. That's fine. I like looking ahead at the graduation. I intend to do exactly what I did with my son's graduation, which I'm going to go to the graduation. I will sit separately from everybody because I don't want to be around anybody, and I'll just focus on her and her graduation. I'm already anticipating, I don't know whose day and it's on, but I figure it's going to go down the same way, that they're going to plan to do a special dinner thing, and I'm not planning on engaging on that. Now, part of that issue is, in my situation, is a whole thing with my mom, who has sided with the ex, and I don't want any part of that. So probably if they weren't coming down and maybe it was just the ex and myself, maybe I would consider, if it's like, okay, we'll go out to dinner afterwards. But even still, I do not want to be in that mode or in that environment. So from my perspective, I'm still planning on just not putting myself in that mode, because I think I could deal with it. I just don't want to add that extra chaos into my life. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. But I mean, it really depends on what you're able to do. If I was able to rationalize all this and be okay with it and not have a concern about it. Part of this is there was a lot of garbage that happened with my mom on this, and there's a lot of unresolved issues that I don't want to be in a situation where they can attack me. And knowing her and her relationship, there's a possibility, a good possibility that could happen, and I just don't want to put myself in that mode. And I'm okay. You know what? I'm okay with it. Well, oftentimes what I remind you guys of, and I'll just say this again just to drive that point home, is what really matters is how you interact with your kids one-on-one. So as long as they are affectionate with you, they love you, you feel like you have a good one-on-one relationship with them, all this other stuff is irrelevant. Would it be nice if they would choose you? Absolutely. But be perfectly honest, it doesn't really matter. Focus on what the reality is, what the reality of the relationship is. All the extra drama, it's just secondary, and it's not really worth basically driving yourself crazy trying to figure out. So I hope this is helpful. I know this is a topic that comes up rather regularly, and I just wanted to hit it. There was a couple of questions that had come up through email on this recently, and I just wanted to address it. So hopefully that was helpful. If you think this channel is helpful for you, please consider hitting subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you get notified of new videos. And if you want, a couple of videos over here you can check out that could be helpful for you. One's recommended for you, and the other one is my latest video. So on that, have a great day, and I will chat with you on the next video. Take care.